So, bore da a croeso I cyfarfod cynllunio. Good morning and welcome to the Planning Committee meeting on February the 9th, 2022. So good morning, welcome everyone. We will go through the agenda as usual. Hopefully you've got the information about blue sheets. Yesterday you got that on an email from Judith Williams, so hopefully you've got that. If you haven't, then send somebody here a message and we can get that through to you. We will start off with apologies. I have had apologies from Councillors Brian Jones and Councillor Melvin Mile. If anyone else, I've also had, I know Tony, you've told me about the Councillor Tony Thomas, you've told me about timings, so I'm aware of those. If anyone else has any, could they just unmute and let me know now of any other apologies, please?
Yes, Councillor Peter Prendergast. He's meeting the Chief Exec at the Community Association or community meeting this morning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I will now just pass you over to the legal officer who will run through a few things, including declarations of interest. So I'll pass you over to Tim Dillon.
Good morning, members. In relation to declarations of interest, members will be aware of the requirements under the Council's Code of Conduct to declare any personal or indeed prejudicial interests in respect of any business to be considered at today's meeting. Such interest should be declared now or as soon as the councillor affected becomes aware that they have a personal or prejudicial interest in today's business. All members declaring an interest are required to state clearly what the interest is and to advise whether it is a personal interest or a personal and prejudicial interest as defined in the Code of Conduct. Any member declaring a prejudicial interest is required to leave the meeting for the duration of the business and can take no part in the proceedings. Members with a personal interest only may take part in the debate and any vote. If a personal or prejudicial and prejudicial interest is declared today that has not previously been disclosed and recorded, the councillor concerned will be required to complete and sign a declaration of interest form, which is available from the committee support staff. Diolch. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So again, if you unmute, if you have a personal or prejudicial interest declaration of interest, please. I see Councillor Mervyn Parry, if you get your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Joe. I like to declare a personal interest in the application number 6 today from GLAN Farm. The farming business there have a trading account with a company that I work for. So it's a personal interest only. Thank you.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Anyone else? Let's give you a few seconds for that. No. Okay. As always, if something comes up during the meeting that you realise you do have an interest, just let us know at your earliest convenience. Agenda item number 3, urgent matters as agreed by the chair. I don't have any. Agenda item number 4 is the minutes of the last meeting. So pages 7 to 12 to confirm the accuracy of the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on January the 12th, 2022. So if we just go through those, and again, just unmute at any point, as I'll go through them quite slowly. Just unmute at any point to comment on any of this. Okay, so starting off with page 7. And then on to page 8, which was the application at Land at the Lodge in Llanrhider. Application 5, that was on page 8. Then application 6 was on page 9. And also on page 10.
Parchus Gadeirydd, dwi wedi codi'n llaw. Cynghori Meirig Davies yn siarad.
Yeah, go for it, Meirig.
Diolch yn fawr. Am na dwy yn aelod o'r Pwyllgor Cynllunio, a'i dyna pam na nodwyd y mod ar y safle ac wedi cyflwyno adroddiad o flaen y Pwyllgor ynglyn y cais yn Llanelwy. Os hynny sydd wir, dylai gwneud yn glir mae dim ond aelodau o'r Pwyllgor Cynllunio sydd i ymweld â safleoedd cynllunio cyn y Pwyllgor. Ydy hynny'n gywir?
Sorry, can I just clarify that? I just want to be clear what that was.
Eisiau mynd drwyddo fo eto?
Yes, please,
Yes,
Enid,
please.
yeah.
Roeddwn ni ar y safle ar ran Plaid Cymru a nes I siarad yn y pwyllgor a rhoi marn, ond tydi o ddim yn ymddangos mod I yno o gwbl yn ôl y cofnod ar tudalen 10.
Oh, I see. I see what you're saying. Right. So on the minutes on page 10, it's obviously got councillors Christine Martinelli, Chad, who are both committee members, and it's got their comments, but it doesn't have your comments because, and you're asking why they're not there because obviously you were there representing a political group. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, and if it can be detailed in the minutes, the capacity in which the councillor was in attendance as well.
Okay. Yeah. So that can just be, so yeah, I've spoken, yeah, Fodry's nodding, so that's fine. They can be added to the minutes. Diolch yn fawr.
Ydy'r cofnodiad gynnyn nhw, beth edes I, neu ni edrych ar y tap newch chi?
Yeah, they'll look on the webcast.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, parchus Gadeirydd.
Diolch, thank you. Okay, so that was on page 10, so that's fine. And then page 11, which had application number 7 on. Okay, so can we have somebody propose those minutes, please?
I propose, Chair, Peter.
You, Councillor Peter Scott, and seconded.
Just to clarify, that's the proposal with the additional
Yeah.
amendment to page 10.
Yeah, correct. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for that? Can't see anyone. Thank you, Councillor Bob Murray. I can see your hand. Okay, and as we do with the minutes, unless there are any dissenting voices, we will assume that they are a true and accurate record alongside some additional notes that will be added to it to represent Cynghorydd Mary Lloyd Davies's views on that item. So just give anyone, if you need to unmute and disagree with that, go for it. Okay, so we can confirm that they are a true and accurate record. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to the items, obviously on the blue sheets, you will see the order is slightly different based on the speakers. We have items with speakers on before items without speakers on. Do officers have any comments before we go into it? No? Okay. So the first item is on page 13, and the ward is RHIF. It's agenda item 5. The ward is RHIF. The ward members are Cynghorydd YMDDIHEURIADAU, Bobby Feely and Hugh Hilditch Roberts. The application number is 02/2021/1179/PF. The proposal is the erection of 2 detached dwellings in associated works. The location is the land at Parts Garden of GWYN, BRYN, GOODMAN, RHUTHUN, LL15 1EL. I know Cynghorydd YMDDIHEURIADAU wants to just come in before we go to any other debate on this. So Cynghorydd YMDDIHEURIADAU.
Diolch yn fawr, Gadeirydd. Gofyn ydw I am gael gohirio'r penderfyniad, os gwelwch yn dda, y drafodaeth ar penderfyniad mwyn galluogi y Pwyllgor Cynllunio i gael ymweliad safle ar y lleoliad. Mi fedra I ymhelaethu, dwi'n meddwl y dylwn ni ar y stage yma, ond dyna'r cais. Os ydych chi eisiau fi ymhelaethu, gofynnwch os gwelwch yn dda.
Okay, I think, do officers want to come in on this?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, councillors. Just to clarify, obviously, we'll go to a vote on the proposition for a site visit. Clearly, what we've tried to do over the course of time is to try and arrange site visits prior to a planning committee. I think there was an issue of timing here that Councillor YMDDIHEURIADAU might be able to just clarify in terms of the reasoning here, just so that members are fully clear that the process normally would hopefully be that members contact ourselves, the officers, to arrange a site visit prior to planning committee. But obviously in this instance, I think Councillor YMDDIHEURIADAU is looking for a site visit from this committee so that we can bring it back to the next. Thank you, Chair.
Na I ymateb, diolch yn fawr. Gaining access onto the site is not easily, informally, certainly, and yeah.
Just to stop you, it was I think because the usual procedure is that
Yeah.
we wouldn't defer an item for a site visit, but I think, can you just confirm that, I think because this was actually added quite late to the report, that's the reason why you're asking for a site visit now?
Yeah, can I just come in if possible, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did feel as if councillor was going to start debating.
Yeah, appreciate that. No, I
No,
wasn't.
I'm just trying to make it
I
safe.
certainly wasn't going to debate the actual planning itself. It's just, well, the reason for being late simply is that by rereading the documents, etc., and having a look at what's been said, I felt, well, we need clarification of the points raised in various documents. And by having a site meeting, we'll be able to not only read about it, but prove it for ourselves as well. Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. Diolch yn fawr. That's all fine. No problems at all. Okay, so we will go to Gwyneth. Do you want to come in? Obviously, can't see anything about...
Dwi'n eilio.
Oh, okay. Yeah, diolch yn fawr. Yeah, I forgot to get a seconder, so that's good. Okay, so that's been proposed, seconded. So we will go to the vote on that. So again, this will be oblaid for if you are voting in favour of deferment, and erbyn refuse if you are voting against deferment, and then amatal abstain if you want to do that. Okay, so in order, Councillor Joan Butterfield.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Ellie Chard.
For.
Councillor Ann Davis.
For.
Cynghorydd Gwynedd Ellis. Here you, Gwyneth Ellis. Okay. Okay, no problem. Councillor Peter Evans.
For.
Councillor Alan Hughes. Councillor Tina Jones.
For.
Councillor Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
Blaid.
Councillor Christine Marston.
For.
For. Councillor Bob Murray. I know you're there, Bob. Can't hear you.
Sorry. Sorry, I can't vote on this one. I had to come off.
Oh, okay. All right. Councillor Mervyn Parry.
For.
Councillor Peter Scott.
For.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
For.
Julian Thompson Hill.
For.
Councillor Joe Welch. For. Cynghorydd YMDDIHEURIADAU.
Obliged.
And Councillor Mark Young.
For.
Thank you.
Chair, could I just say that I'll abstain?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was just confirming that. Actually, I thought that's what you said. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Okay, so we have 14 votes for deferral, none to refuse, and 1 abstain. Therefore, that item has been deferred. So we will move swiftly on to agenda item 6, which is on page 49 of our reports. The ward is Llandyrnog. The ward member is Councillor Mervyn Parry. The application number is 18/2021/0533/PF. The proposal is the erection of 2 agricultural buildings for the housing of livestock, installation of feed, silo and underground effluent tank, the formation of hard standings and surface water attenuation pond, landscaping and associated works. The location is WERN Farm, Whitchurch Road, Llandyrnog, Denbigh, LL 16 4HL. The officer recommendation is to grant on this one, and we do have a public speaker. There's not a public speaker against, who would usually go first. So we just have a public speaker for, which is a David Haston, who is the agent. So Mr. Haston, when you are ready, you will have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in support of this application today. The proposed development would essentially involve the construction of 2 modest agricultural buildings, One building would accommodate up to 48 young calves, whilst the other would accommodate 72 young stock up to just 6 months of age. The calves and young stock will be housed on deep straw bedding and will be fed mainly on hay, both of which are more environmentally friendly. The buildings have been designed specifically to meet the health and welfare needs of young cattle, with good natural ventilation and above standard space requirements. The buildings will be sited at an existing farmstead rather than in a remote or prominent location. Objectors have raised various matters that are relevant to this planning application. However, all of these have been addressed to the satisfaction of statutory consultees and the case officer. In particular, it's worth noting that the proposed development is not large scale. In fact, it constitutes a small or minor development. This type of agricultural enterprise does not constitute an intensive livestock unit, as defined within the environmental impact assessment regulations. The buildings will be viewed in the context of the existing larger buildings at the farmstead, which, when coupled with the proposed new native boundary hedgerow, would serve to minimise any visual impact. Detailed ammonia impact assessments have demonstrated to the satisfaction of NRW that ammonia emissions on designated wildlife sites will be negligible. The council's heritage officer has confirmed that there will be no adverse effect on the listed hall or its setting. The proposed pond or swale has been designed to attenuate clean surface water runoff from both the proposed development and the existing buildings at the farm, thereby reducing the risk of flooding elsewhere. NRW has indicated that it is satisfied that the proposed manure management, handling and storage arrangements would meet the requirements of the water resources regulations. And finally, an ecological survey has confirmed that there will be no adverse effect on protected species or important habitats. The proposed agricultural development is in principle an appropriate form of development in the countryside, and it would help to secure and support rural employment both on the farm and in the wider rural economy. The proposed development accords with the relevant policies contained within PPW and the local development plan, and I would therefore invite members to look favourably upon this application. Thank you.
Okay, diolch yn fawr, thank you very much. Okay, do officers want to come in before? I think no. Okay, so local member, Councillor Mervyn Parry, would you like to come in at this point?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll just put my camera off just so it doesn't go funny. I haven't got any concerns with this application, although I did look that the Community Council were supporting it, and there were a few local residents who had their concerns, which I contacted the officer at the time just to deal with those, and predominantly most of them have been dealt with through the Natural Resource Wales, who they've and the agents they've managed to overcome any of the concerns there. Some of the concerns that the neighbours had was the how close it was to them. But having looked at it, the GLAN Hall cottages, they're located about 250 metres away from the new buildings, and they are actually screened as a 60-metre depth of woodland between them and that cottages, and there's 200 metres of farmland as well between them as well also. So I think that the location of them are pretty isolated away from them really. So I haven't got any really concerns. I did take note of the local residents' concerns, but I think they've been addressed and it is what it is. So I'll propose this application, Chair.
Thank you very much. So proposing to go with officer's recommendation to grant.
Yes.
Have a seconder for that, Councillor Mark Young. Thank you. I can see that. Okay. So do we have any speakers again with this one? I can see Gwyneth Kensler's raised a hand. So likewise, if we want to, because I can't see everyone on screen, I can see raised hands on my iPad. So if you raise your hand, that will be the easiest way to do it this morning, please. So can Gwyneth Kensler?
Yes, I'd just like to ask about the Public Protection Officer informally commented. I just question that. And then the comments of the county ecologist? Could they be answered?
Yep, okay, I'll bring in one of the Pauls. So I'm just staring at them both now, seeing which one's going to come in. I think it might be Paul Griffin.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was just scrolling through to see what the comments are. Regarding the Public Protection Officer, they were obviously, say, informal. He's not put a formal response to the officer yet that we would put on thing. So essentially, this was a verbal conversation that they had. He has confirmed to the case officer that he's content that the proposal is unlikely to have any adverse impacts on residential amenity by way of that. There is a safeguarding condition that we put on though, where to do with an odour management plan, which would assist us just to further ensure there's no problems for any residential properties in that area. Just trying to spot the comments of the county ecologist. Yeah, sorry, there we go. It's the ammonia impact on the woodlands. Obviously, where you've got livestock such as this, there's a potential for ammonia that can have detrimental impact on ancient woodlands and established woodlands, etc. This was raised as a concern that was discussed with NRW and himself and the case officer. And as it says there, given the intensity of the proposal, the nitrogen levels aren't sufficient to be causing us concern at this point. So again, there are no objections from our county ecologist on this proposal. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Do we have any other speakers, or otherwise we can go to the vote? Okay, so again, for this one, we'll go to the vote. This will be all BLYG 4 to vote in accordance with officer recommendation. There's been no amendments or additional conditions, so exactly as the report lies. An EDBIN would be to refuse and a MATEL to abstain. Okay, 3 options there. So again, we'll run through. Councillor Joan Butterfield.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Ellie Chard.
4.
Councillor Ann Davis.
4.
Cynghorydd Gwyneth Ellis.
Obliged.
Councillor Peter Evans.
4.
Councillor Tina Jones.
4.
Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
Obliged.
Councillor Christine Marston.
4.
4. Councillor Bob Murray.
4.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
4.
Councillor Peter Scott.
4.
Councillor Tony Thomas. Oh, he did say he was leaving, so yeah, that 5-2, so that makes sense. Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill.
4.
Councillor Joe Welch. 4.
Obliged.
Councillor Mark Young.
4.
Okay, so that's 15 votes for, 0 against and 0 abstain. So therefore that application has been granted in accordance with officer recommendation. Okay, so we're now moving on slightly out of agenda order because of the public speakers. So we are moving on to agenda item number 8. This is on page 121 of our reports. And the ward is Tremechion. The ward member is Councillor Christine Marston. The application number is 41/2021/1199/PC. The proposal is the erection of a garden implement store. It is a retrospective application. The location is FFERM, BODFARI, DENBIGH. And there is a public speaker on this. Again, there's no public speaker against, who would usually go first. The officer recommendation is to grant. The public speaker for is Peter Lloyd, who is the agent. So welcome, Peter Lloyd. You will have 3 minutes when you are ready to address the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I will, as normal, be very, very brief. FFERM was constructed as a replacement for a previously existing dwelling under a planning permission granted in 2014. Its permission does not constrain or remove permitted development rights either to the dwelling itself or, as in this case, for detached curtilage buildings. It was erected on the understanding it was Class E permitted development, a garden store, implement and ride-on grass mowing for implements and a small ride-on grass cutting machine. On discovering via your planning compliance officers that the building indeed needed formal permission due to its AONB location, the applicants remedied that via this application to retain it. The committee will, of course, be well versed in these provisions within the Act to do that. Its purpose being to allow buildings found to be subject of control only after they have been erected to subsequently be granted planning permission. In the course of the application, the applicants have agreed to additional landscaping between their land and neighbouring properties, which are indeed some distance away. It is, to my judgment, a modest and unobtrusive building, sited against rising ground under a slated pitched roof with timber walls. It's entirely appropriate in design and scale to the dwelling, its curtilage and setting. I fully endorse to you the officer's recommendations that this is an entirely appropriate and supportable domestic scale development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The officers want to come in before? No. Okay, we'll go to the local member, Councillor Christine Marston.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, BRYN. It sits in a spectacular elevation, really, between BODFARI and Tremerchion, and it's within the AOMB. This shed was only brought to planning as it had come to the attention of the enforcement officer. I agree with the AOMB Advisory Committee deploring the retrospective nature of this application, but in principle, to the proposal, I have no objection. But I do have two areas of concern, which are the planting scheme and the external lighting. So can officers please explain, a planting scheme was approved for the replacement dwelling application, but has not been carried out. How can we ensure that this historical planting scheme and the proposed planting scheme will be carried out? Can we link the conditions to the original planting scheme? And the external lighting, there are conditions to control the external lighting on the garden shed, but what about the lighting from the house shining towards the garden store? Can we please clarify the position of how we can address those two areas? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Do officers want to come in on that?
Thank you, Chair. Dealing with the lighting first there, we can't extend control on this application to removing the rights on the existing dwelling to have no external lights. We can, however, do that, and we've suggested a condition on this application to remove the rights to put external lights on the shed without our further consent. I think this is a situation that crops up across the AOMB with the dark skies ambition that we have, that there are existing properties that we've got no control over. We have to accept that, but it's moving forward. We try and do our best to limit the lights where reasonable. Regarding the planting, yes, there's a scheme been put forward to help soften this proposal into the landscape, and we note the comments about the existing planting scheme for the previous permission having not been implemented. I think the best thing we can do there is obviously alert the enforcement section to that, and as part of trying to enforce the planting on this current scheme, we'll get further planting as per the previous permission. So I think there's that offer there from officers to keep the conversation and the pressure on the applicants on this one. I hope that helps. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, officers. I would just hope that the applicants will obviously show goodwill towards the residents around them and sort of push ahead with all their planting scheme, which they have sort of documented and said that they would carry out. On that note, then, can I please propose this application to be granted? Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a seconder for that? Councillor Peter Scott, thank you. Councillor Mark Young, I can see your hand is raised.
Yeah, just a couple of ones. Thank you, Chair. So just like to ask officers, so on the landscaping, and Paul, know we've had problems with existing applications. It's not just about doing this, about the quality. And Paul Griffin will know that some of the sites we've been round, we've agreed aren't up to standard. So how do we manage that? Because it's got to be to a certain standard to make sure it's fulfilling its requirements. And is there any lawfulness on this building because of the time it's been up? Just to confirm that before we vote, because I'm guessing it's been up for a couple of years. Just those 2 points, please.
Thank you, Chair. No, there's no lawfulness on that building as it stands. Regarding the quality of the landscaping scheme, again, this will be the sort of the conversation to be had between case officer, enforcement officer, and the applicants. They can put the best scheme in the world in on paper, and we can approve it. If it's then poorly planted or not implemented correctly and fails to take, then obviously there's an issue there. And I think usually we just scroll through, there's a condition that actually sort of secures that if planting fails within the first 5 years of development for a number of reasons, then we can enforce that they have to replant. So there is a bit of a conversation to be had there and to ensure it's done properly, but we have got conditions in place that allow us to keep the pressure on the applicants across the board, not just this site, just generally speaking, to make sure planting schemes actually are implemented correctly and do take. I hope that helps. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and I look forward to the replanting on all the other sites we've been round, Paul. Jock and vow.
Thank you. Councillor Mervyn Parry.
Yeah, just want to give Christine Mason support on her concerns about the lighting on this site because of the proximity to the AONB and the dark sky status that the AONB are trying to do. So we just need to make sure we monitor that one and so that it's followed through, so we're not getting any repercussions again. But apart from that, I'm supporting it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've had a proposer, we've had a seconder. So we've had the proposer to grant it in accordance with officer recommendation, and that has been seconded. Had a couple of speakers. I can't see that anyone else wants to speak on this item. Therefore, we will go to the vote on it. So again, 3 options: obliged for to vote in accordance with officer recommendation to grant it as the agenda item is. An admin would be to refuse, a Mattel abstain. Okay. So if we're all happy with that, Councillor Joan Butterfield.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Ellie Chard.
4.
Councillor Ann Davis.
4.
Hollywood Gwyneth Ellis.
Obliged.
Councillor Didn't hear you, Pete, sorry. I can lip read. You said 4. He went on and off mute about 5 times then. Councillor Tina Jones.
4.
Hollywood Gwyneth Kensler.
Obliged.
Councillor Christine Marston.
4.
4. Councillor Bob Murray.
4.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
4.
Councillor Peter Scott.
4.
I'm assuming Tony's not back. Councillor Tony Thomas. No. Councillor Julian Thompson Hill.
4.
Councillor Joe Welch. 4. Cynghoredd LLYS.
Obliged.
And Councillor Mark Young.
4.
Okay, so that's 15 votes for, no against, and no abstain. Therefore, that application has been granted in accordance with officer recommendation. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 7. We do have one additional item, so just so we're aware. So once this one has finished, I don't think it'll be very long, but we do just have one additional item that we do need to take a vote on. Okay, about it's on the late reps sheet about Awillamore offshore wind farms, just so we're aware of that. Okay, agenda item number 7 is on page 87 of our reports. The ward is LLANDYRNOG. The ward member is me, Councillor Joseph Welch. The application number is 23/2021/0927/PR. The proposal is the details of appearance, landscaping and scale of 33 dwellings submitted in accordance with the condition number 1 of Outline Planning Permission Code number 23/2016/0557, and it is a reserved matters application. So the location is the land adjacent to DOLWAR, Llanrhaeadr, Denbigh, LL16 4NT. There are no public speakers on this item. Do officers have any comments on this initially? So I am the local member, and as has happened in the past, sometimes I would obviously vacate the chair, but there's just I think it's okay if I stay in the chair for this one. And I've discussed that with officers. There's just a few comments I just like answers from the officers regarding. It's mostly on what the Community Council have raised. Obviously, this is just a reserved matters application, so it's not an item that we're discussing actually whether there should be 33 houses or not. But there are obviously a few points that we're just coming to now. And the Community Council seem to have some good valid points regarding the sewerage, the local primary school and the trees planted. And I think the primary school one's easily covered because I think there's a different amounts being asked for. And then the trees, I think, but if you could just confirm that the ecologist has been contacted and they are happy with the mix of trees and that there are more native trees than oriental or ornamental trees and then just about the sewerage discharge as well and how that works with whether that's something we can discuss at this meeting or whether that's something that Welsh Water will enforce upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, dealing with the sewerage first, it's there's some concerns raised in the community about the proposed crossing of third-party land to connect to the sewers. Welsh Water have made it quite clear that they wouldn't give consent for that proposal, and they've advised the applicants that they need to connect through their own site and into the sewers on the A525, which is a preferable option to all parties as far as I'm aware. But essentially, this does sit outside of the planning. So again, those concerns we can put to the side and leave for Welsh Water. In regard to the trees, there is a mix. It's a reasonable request from the Community Council. Looking at the actual detailed planting plan, there is a very heavy mix of native and non-native species. They're looking at the actual significant trees, the architectural trees, so the big ones, as it were. They're going to be about 22 native species and 10 non-natives. The county ecologist has looked at this scheme and he concurs that it's a good planting scheme that is beneficial to the environment. I hope that answers your questions.
Yep, that's great. Thank you very much. Okay, I've got a few hands raised. I think Cynghorydd Gwyneth Ellis, I think yours was up first, so let you go first, Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr. Na i drio hefo'r camera ymlaen I weld os di hynny'n gweithio. Mae gen I gwpl o gwestiynau i'r swyddogion. Y cyntaf ynglyn â ffeithio llesol, ac os yna ystyriaeth wedi cael ei roed I deithio i'r ysgol yn benodol, dydy'r ysgol ddim yn bell, ond dwi'n credu bysa trigolion y stad newydd yma yn gorfod croesi ffordd brysur I fynd i'r ysgol. Felly os nad oes yna ystyriaeth I deithio llesol a diogel dros y ffordd, dwi'n meddwl bod yna beryg y bydd lot o bobl yn mynd â'u ceir I fynd â'u plant i'r ysgol o'r safle yma. Felly dyna'r cwestiwn cyntaf. A'r ail gwestiwn ydy ynglyn â pharcio. Wrth edrych ar gynllun y safle, mae'n amlwg fod yna ddigon o lefydd parcio I ateb y gofynion, ond mae nifer fawr iawn o'r tai yma hefo 3 lle parcio mewn rhes un ar ôl y llall, sy'n golygu os di'r car cynta yn yr rhes eisiau gadael, mi fydd rhaid i'r 2 gar arall adael gynta, felly fydd eir yn gorfod mynd dros bob man mwyn, dwi'n gweld yn fler iawn ac ydy hynny'n cael ei gymryd I ystyriaeth wrth edrych ar y llefydd parcio. Ac yn ychwanegol, oes na ddigon o lefydd parcio I ymwelwyr ar safle yn hytrach na thrigolion. Diolch yn fawr.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Do officers want to come in on that now and then I'll get to the
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the active travel issues and how the site sort of connects with the wider area and the infrastructure there, that would have been taken into account as part of the outline planning permission, as it sort of fundamentally goes to the heart of the permission. And just to point out that at that stage, and indeed at this stage too, the Highway Authority have not raised any objections to the proposal. So when they make their response to the planning officers, they will take into account active travel and what the implications are for highway safety. There's a similar point there with the parking. It's a really reasonable question, actually, because it does have links to both sort of the principle, but also the layout, which we are considering today. All I would say is that, again, we've no objections from the Highway Authority on that. It's a residential housing estate. It's a usual arrangement to have linear parking arrangements, and it's in line with our parking SPG. I think the implications now, if we started to try and enforce that all parking spaces for dwellings all had a road frontage, so that there was so that you didn't have to do the car shuffle every other day. You know, I don't think that'd be practical in terms of sort of land use. I think we'd end up with sort of like an inefficient use of land there. So all I would emphasize is that the Highway Authority look at highway safety, look at how parking arrangements work, and they've not raised an objection with us on this one. Thank you.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Cynghorydd Emrys-Wyn.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Cwpl o gwestiynau gennau parthed yr cais yma. Tai fforddiadwy, ydych chi'n nodi yn yr adroddiad bod chi'n siomedig bod yr 3 thŷ fforddiadwy wedi cael ei grwpio gyda'i gilydd yn hytrach na'i gwasgaru o gwmpas yr ystad fel y dymuniad swyddogion y cyngor yn ôl os dwi wedi darllen yn gywir. Mae'n bechod nad ydy hynny ddim wedi digwydd, a gofyn ydw i bydde modd edrych ar hynny, dwi'n yn siŵr iawn go brin ar y cais yma. A hefyd, eto tai fforddiadwy, mae'r tri thu yn 2 ystafell wely, ac yn yr adroddiad ych chi'n deud bod hwnna'n diwallu'r angen lleol. Wrth ddarllen dogfen arall sydd yn sydd dan manylion yr cais cynllunio, 15 o Ragfyr 2021, mae o'n dweud yn fama bod yna alw am 7 tŷ fforddiadwy yn yr ardal, a does ddim ffigwr o gwbl yn ymyl tai 2 ystafell wely. Ar gyfer pwy mae'r tai fforddiadwy yma te, os nad ydyn nhw'n mynd i ddiwallu'r angen lleol?
Okay, diolch yn fawr, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the affordable housing issue. I mean, obviously, officers have been discussing this with the policy and strategic housing officers. So we'd just be reporting that the proposal being put to us is acceptable. There are still terms of the Section 106 to vary, as it says at the end of the report. So all we'd say is that the advice we've received is that the proposal is acceptable from a affordable housing need. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Ail rannu'r cwestiwn ar gyfer o ran maint y tai fforddiadwy. Does ddim sôn am 2 fforddiadwy tair ystafell wely, sef yr angen lleol yn ôl yr adroddiad sgynna i.
Okay, I'll bring in Paul Mead for that one.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of points really, just from the questions so far. I'll come on to Councillor Emrys-Wynne's query there. I was just wanting to highlight to Councillor Gwyneth Ellis as well, if there is any concerns around active travel or indeed parking, we can put you in touch with our highways colleagues, Ben Wilcox-Jones and Mike Jones. Might be a conversation to have there around any issues, because there is an active travel sort of schedule that the council has in terms of implementation of various schemes across the county. So this might be one you want to talk to Ben Wilcox-Jones over. So I just wanted to flag that up, and I'll make sure you've got the email details of that, Councillor Ellis. In relation to the affordable housing and the provision on the site at Dolwar, then in response to Councillor Emrys-Wynne's point, I think it's a very valid point, and it's one, obviously, if there is going to be discussions on the variation of any legal agreement in terms of the terms of both grouping and I think in terms of the how many beds that the proposed units have got, then we will go back and raise that, Councillor Wynne, in relation to the scheme. So we will try and keep in touch with you on that and let you know.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Diolch yn fawr.
Okay, deal. Okay, Councillor Mervyn Parry.
Thank you, Chair. I'll put my video off again. Just a couple of points, really. One, I'm very disappointed that the SUDS is only coming in as an approval, and we need approval. I just think that on such a site like this, that a lot of the concerns raised from local people about the site comes under the SUDS, and I know somebody will tell me in a minute that they've got to be approved, but I just think that we should, going forward, bring these nearer together so people can understand where the SUDS and the planning work side by side. It's we tend to lose it after it's gone through planning. So I'm a little bit annoyed with that one again, but you know where I'm coming from. I just like to think that we should bring the SUDS together. Could I propose on this development that we condition, it might be in there, but I haven't seen it, on because it's the size of the site, on the entrance onto the main road, that the work done on the main road is done at the beginning of the development. On the entrance to the site, it's done at the beginning and not halfway through or at the end, for safe access in and out of the development. And any of the footpath works that are done to improve the access from the site to the village of Llanrheidr is again done at the beginning of the development and not through the middle or the end, because it's possible that 2 or 3 of these houses could be living in and the site hasn't been finished. So we want safe access for anybody who's living in their beginning of the development to be able to walk safely to the village and to the shop, and the entrance in and out of the site is made safe at the beginning of the development, not halfway through or at the end like we have seen in previous developments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring in a couple of other speakers first, and then officers can come in on those points. Councillor Mark Young.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and I'll agree with Councillor Parry on the SUDS, but I'll add some meat to the bone on that one. Obviously, this was passed, it's a year and a half ago, so good practice would say that the SUDS has been signed off, and it is a year and a half, so I think there's been enough time to do that, and we know this area has flooded, so it makes sense, it should be done, and they've had long enough, and I think you get the gist from members, good practice, we should be doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Cynghorydd Gwyneth Ellis eisiau dod I mewn eto?
Oes, diolch yn fawr. Un cwestiwn ychwanegol. Mae'r adran 116 yn bwysig yn hwn, dwi'n meddwl, o ystyried yr effaith ar yr ysgol, a mae yna swm sylweddol arian yn gysylltiedig efo hwnnw. Felly dwi eisiau gofyn pam nad oes yna amod fod yr arian yna'n cael ei dalu o dan adran 116 cyn i'r datblygiad gychwyn. Diolch.
Okay, and I'll just get LLYS and then we can get questions to all those answers to all those questions.
Right, diolch yn fawr. Sori chwi. Tudalen 114, paragraff 422. Local Development Plan Saesneg, cyn allan fel mae o Local Development Plan Policy RD1 test. And if I look at the number 6, requires that development does not unacceptably affect prominent public views into, out of, or across any settlement or area of open countryside. Now, if you have recently purchased a property in Pantycelyn, your view of an open countryside of the Crwyddian Hills will be affected. Are we not actually working against that policy?
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Right, a few comments there for officers to work on, starting with Councillor Mervyn Parries.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd say we'll put the SUDS to one side because I think as members know, it's a separate process to planning. There are obviously conversations we can continue to have with yourselves on that front and incorporating our drainage engineer. So yeah, your comments on SUDS are definitely noted. Now, regarding proposed conditions to ensure the access is dealt with at the right time in the development, I would just stress that this application is a reserved matters application and that the details of access were approved on the outline application. So any conditions relating to the access should have been imposed on the outline consent. So I think whilst I totally understand the need or the request there, I think it'd be wrong to impose those conditions on this application. What I probably will do is when we return back to the office later is I'll look through the outline consent and update Councillor Parry as to what controls are in place regarding the access and the implementation of that. The question about the section 106 and making sure that the money is paid, well, towards the end of this report it states that we wouldn't actually release this consent for reserve matters until the section 106 is signed, and within that section 106 legal agreement would be all the relevant triggers for when money has to be paid, and the whole driving motive for how you do the triggers is at what time will the impacts sort of from the development arise. So obviously we try and get, before the houses are being lived in or at a certain point during the occupation, we'd have money put through to the Education Authority to help with the school improvements. So yeah, it's not accepted legally to actually condition that section 106s are entered into. You simply don't issue the permission until that 106 is signed. So we've got a deed of variation to tidy up the 106 in that respect. And then moving on to whether or not we're actually looking at conflict with RD1, I would just stress that it's an allocated housing site. So all the way back when the LDP was actually came into being, that policy was written alongside the notion that, well, we're going to have to release some land for development. So it would be quite hard to argue that just point blank that by developing this site, we're clearly going to be unacceptably affecting prominent views. We've already decided in adopting the local development plan that piece of land is suitable for development. So we'd then look at the sale and appearance, the dwellings have been put forward to us, and essentially the officer's conclusions are that the design and the appearance of them is acceptable, and it wouldn't unacceptably affect the prominent views across the countryside. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Chair, can I come back?
Yep, yeah, go for a moment.
Thanks, Paul, for your reply on that one. I have brought this point up about the exits on most of the applications of a reasonable size, and I would have expected that possibly that the officers, it's not a criticism, but I'm just saying that I expected that possibly once we put it on one, we would put it on all of them on planning applications to safeguard the residents and the local people around that site. So if it's not done on that one, could I maybe suggest that you look at your next applications that come forward and deal with those appropriately by making sure there's safeguards on the exit and entrances and the footpaths around any future sites that come to us, please, so we can condition them at the start and not having to wait to be picked up somewhere in between planning of outlying or full planning. Thank you.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Yep, no, good, valid point there. Thank you. I think officers are nodding on that as well, so thank you. Cynghorydd Gwyneth Censler.
Ie, fedrith swyddogion jyst egluro yn glir beth ydy reserved matters. Dwi'n meddwl oedd ganddo ni cais yn Nimbych, a daeth o ddim i'r Pwyllgor oherwydd oedd swyddogion yn dweud reserved matters, fedrwn ni jyst gwneud penderfyniad. Felly, beth yn union ydy reserved matters?
Okay, yeah, I think that's an easy one that officers will be able to go through, and why it comes to committee or not.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's two stages sometimes with development proposals, Councillor. The first is an outline application, and effectively what a developer is looking to do there is try and establish the principle of having some form of development on a site. Now, with that outline application, the developer can sometimes submit a variety of additional details to us, so it's not just a line on a map, so to speak, saying can I build houses here. They sometimes need to establish that a safe access could be provided on the site, the sort of scale and size of development on the site will be adequate in relation to the topography and the landscape. So sometimes with an outline application, you do also get some of the reserved matters submitted, and those reserved matters include things like the highway access, scale and design, landscaping. Paul might remind me what the other ones are, but they're basically details that come forward with a proposed development. In this instance, obviously what you're dealing with here is the outline was dealt with previously. So the principle of developing on this allocated local development plan site was established with an outline application. That outline application at the time did include details of vehicular access because we wanted to make sure that a safe and satisfactory access to the site could be made here. So there is a permission in place. This is what we've got to remember here today, is that there is a permission in place in outline form with the details of the access. This application is trying to deal with the other reserved matters, and reserved matters are things that the developer on the outline was basically saying, well, I'll come back and show you what the properties are going to look like and how it's all going to be designed in a reserved matters application. Now, both of those types of application can come to planning committee, that there is still the terms within your scheme of delegation for either of those types of application to come to planning committee, and that would rely upon whether there is objections to either of those applications. If there's a certain number of objections to either an outline or reserved matters application, and officers are looking to grant planning permission, it will be brought to planning committee. So it's not necessarily the type of application and whether it comes to committee, it's what's within your scheme of delegation and the terms. So hopefully that answers Councillor Kensler's question. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Gwyneth? Yep. Okay. Cynghorydd YMDDIHEURIADAU, your hand is still raised. Did you want to come back on any of your points?
Just I gael dod yn ôl, sori, ar ateb Paul. Dwi'n sylweddoli bod y cynllun datblygu lleol yn arwain y ffordd ar hwn yn wirionedd. Dio ddim yn llawer o help i ni aelodau sydd yn aelodau 2017 sydd â diwedd y cynllun datblygu sydd mewn grym ar hyn o bryd, a mae pethau wedi newid yn fawr iawn ers 2006. Ond o'n i'n mynd i ofyn, ydy'n bosib cael rhyw fath o drefn sgrinio sensitif effeithiol fydde o help i cymdogion i'r tai yma. Wrth edrych ar y map wan, wella bod fi'n ateb cwestiwn yn hun ac yn deud bydde unrhyw sgrinio mae'n debyg yn effeithio ar y tai arfaethedig beth bynnag hefyd. Ond wella bod y swyddog eisiau gwneud sylw i'r hyn dwi'n dweud mwy na ateb y cwestiwn.
Okay. Do officers want to come in on that?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd say there's quite a detailed landscaping plan that's been put forward and has sort of been assessed by the ecologist and the planning officer. So landscaping can have two purposes there, obviously improving biodiversity, but also offering that screening and that softening of development. I think given the location of the site, the officers are actually happy that obviously we're dealing with landscaping, we're dealing with the appearance of development. Officers are clearly happy that what's been put forward is sufficient to soften the appearance of it and make it an attractive form of development. So yeah, I'd say that the submitted landscaping plan it sufficiently makes the case that you ask for. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you. Okay, so I think everyone's had their questions and had them answered. We haven't had any proposal or seconder yet for anything. Does anyone want to do any of that?
I'll propose it, Chair.
Diolch yn fawr. Was that you, Mervyn?
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, so proposed by Councillor Mervyn Parry, seconded. Does anyone want to second that? Councillor Christine Marston seconded that. Obviously, there's a lot of comments to take on board, no additional conditions or anything, but obviously lots of comments there for officers to have considered and things to hopefully move us forward in the future. So we will go to the vote on this. Yeah, so to propose to grant in accordance with officer recommendation. Yeah. Let me just check that phrasing right. Yeah, it's actually, yeah, so just to clarify, Mervyn, it's proposal to approve rather than grant, so approve these conditions in accordance with officer recommendation, yeah? And Councillor Christine Marston, happy with seconding that?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we will go to the vote on that. So again, we will have three options. Obliged 4, which would be to be in favour of approving these conditions. Refuse or abstain are your options. Okay, so we'll go to the vote. And Councillor Joan Butterfield.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Ellie Chard.
4.
Councillor Ann Davis.
4.
Howlydd Gwyneth Ellis.
Obliged.
Councillor Peter Evans.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Tina Jones.
4.
Howlydd Gwyneth Kensler.
Obliged.
Councillor Christine Marston.
4.
4. Thank you. Councillor Bob Murray.
4.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
4.
Councillor Peter Scott.
4.
Thomas. Don't think it's returned. No. Councillor Julian Thompson Hill.
4.
Councillor Joe Welch. 4. Cynghorydd Emrys-Wyn.
Yn erbyn.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Young.
4.
Okay, so we have 14 votes for, 1 to refuse and no abstain. Therefore, that application has been approved. Okay, so we've just got one last item which came through on the late sheets. It's at the end of the blue sheets that came through from Judith Williams last night. It's additional item. It's Awillamore Offshore Wind Farm. The reason this has come through on a blue sheet is just because the information didn't come through to officers until after the reports needed to be written for the actual for it to go out. As you can see, we do need to take a vote on this, and officers are seeking delegated powers to submit comments on the updated plans on behalf of the council. Should any members wish to raise any matter on these amendments, they can do so by emailing Denise Shaw. and ensure the chair of planning and the lead member are copied in. Officers will then seek agreement on a final response with the chair and or sending the response, and they'll obviously be working with the local members there as well on this. Do officers want to give us a little intro to this? So it's
thank you, Chair. I will just for clarity, really, just in terms of the information that's on the late sheets for you, because there is a bit of information there. Members will remember that back in October 2021, we came to Planning Committee with a report for you in relation to this this major development at Wellermore. Obviously, you're aware of the proposal. It's to obviously put an offshore wind farm with around 91 wind turbines off the coast. And then the main sort of implications really for us as a county is with the onshore works, the connection with the cabling, which are proposed to come on land and end a substation down towards the back of St Asaph. So we came to members back in October based on the applicant's pre-application consultation. So what the applicants had to do, they had to go out and consult with communities, with various other stakeholders, specialist consultees, and we as a council and a local planning authority were one of those consultees. So clearly we examined the proposals at that time, and we consulted with a number of internal specialists. We came to Planning Committee in October 2021 with a report which was outlining what submissions we wanted to make to that pre-application consultation. So that was agreed here at Planning Committee. It was agreed with local members and members that were affected by the proposal. And within that report, we were obviously making some suggestions and raising some concerns about certain elements of the development. What you've got to remember as well is obviously that the applicants here would have garnered a lot of other input from specialist consultees as well as part of their pre-application consultation. So what they've done is they've sort of analysed and looked at all the information that have been provided by us and by others, and they've effectively done a few changes to the proposed scheme now, and they've alerted us to that. They've alerted us sort of fairly recently to that, hence we weren't able to provide you with another detailed report. But they're effectively sort of minor changes to the overall scheme, having regard to some of the made. So what we're asking members here is to agree delegated powers for us as officers to submit any further comments that we want to make at this pre-application stage. Obviously, remembering that when they submit their formal application, we do have another go at this in terms of providing further input into the development proposal. So this is still pre-application stage. We've given some input previously in October. They've made some slight changes. We want members to sort of agree that the officers can provide any further information that we want to give to them again in consultation with the local members, the lead member and the chair of planning committee. Happy to answer any questions on that. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, so today we're not looking at agreeing a response. So we don't want anyone to say, this is what I think, let's have a vote on that. What we're doing is just voting to see whether it's okay for members to have that discussion with Denise and other officers, and then there'll be just because of the timescales, it can't come back to planning committee just to vote on it. Okay, so that's what the vote's going to be. It's not about actual what would go into it today, but obviously we can have questions and things today about the sort of process and things like that. So Councillor Peter Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm happy for members, officers to delegate the job. But when will we see the minor revisions? Are we likely to get them, Paul, shortly?
Yeah, we should do, Councillor Scott. What I'd encourage you to do is liaise with Denise Shaw as per the blue sheet there, and hopefully she'll be able to pass any information on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'm bringing I know Maidic, you got your hand up, but I'll bring in the members of the committee first, okay, who just raised their hands, okay. I won't forget. Councillor Joan Butterfield.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's just a question to Paul Mead, if I might, Chair. And if you're now opening consultation with the contractors that are going on site, I'd just like to highlight that at the consultation that the RHIL members had, which was many months ago now, but that consultation, we were given an assurance that the RHIL Golf Club would be secure, and the defences, the cables, all the stuff, that the paraphernalia wasn't going to interfere with the golf club. A little later we were told, but not officially, Chair, that we were told that there was some consultation around 2 large platforms of concrete that would be laid on the site, and that would interfere with the greens at the golf club. And I'm just highlighting, Chair, and asking Paul, when the consultation and you open the negotiations with the contractors, would you please highlight that and ask where they are with that? And if indeed this is to happen, and could we be then part of the consultation to see whether that would be an appropriate act? It might well have taken place with the golf club, but the members were concerned, Chair. Thank you.
Very much.
Yeah, I hear what Councillor Butterfield's saying on that. Just to remember, of course, at this pre-application stage, RHIL Town Council or any individual member can feed any formal input into this project. There is a project website, of course, a Wellamore website. All the relevant details of the current status of their proposal and their project is on there. So again, Denise can forward you any links to any information on that. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question in relation to that, Councillor Butterfield. The issue with RHIL Golf Course, of course we did raise that, didn't we, when we came to Planning Committee in October, and so I think we'd had an update from a Wellamore on that via one of their newsletters to say that they had taken that into account. So hopefully that answered the question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mark Young.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. So overall, I like this approach, but I don't want any members, especially Councillor Davis or Peter Evans, having a go at me in the future. So on the final response, would it be okay just to share that with members, just to check before it goes out? You'd only have to give 24 hours. If anyone felt strongly against it, I'd hate to miss the opportunity to allow them to input, please, Chair.
Yep, that's fine. So it can go out minimum of 24 hours just before it gets sent off. Yeah, to give people that final chance. Yep. Okay. Councillor Mervyn Parry.
It's just a concern and something for officers to maybe take note of, that there's a big substation behind Plaza Esgob at the moment. There's a new, I take it that this is going to be a new substation that's going to be built to the west of St Asaph Business Park. And we've also got 2 large applications coming in for solar farms that I would imagine are going to have probably another 2 substations again in the St Asaph area. Now, I would, if I lived in St Asaph, start to be a little bit concerned with all the substations that are getting put around the St Asaph area, and maybe they could consider that when they're maybe having a think about their proposals on this one. Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yep. Cynghorydd Mary-Cloyd Davis.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Wel, fel da chi'n gwybod, mae hwn yn effeithio ar cymeriadog yn fawr iawn. Ac mae Merfyn wedi tynnu sylw at rhai o'r problemau. Ac mae'r cyfnewydydd gan y cwmni yma mewn cae sydd i'r gogledd o cymeriadog yn Plwy Bodolwyddan. Felly dwi yn poeni'n arw. Ydych chi am drafod hwn hefo'r cynghorau cymuned sydd o dan y lach efo hwn? Mae Denise wedi cysylltu, nes i gael y sgwrs efo'i cynt, ond dwi'm yn gwybod ydy hynny wedi gweithio, a be ydy'r newidiadau mae'r cwmni yma, a chi ddeud mae rhai mân iawn ydyn nhw, o'n i'n meddwl, basa fo'n newid go fawr os yn wedi cyd-weld â ni, felly. Felly dwi yn poeni'n arw am hwn, a gobeithio newch chi ddod yn ôl atai a Cyngor Cymuned Cymeriadog. Ydw i wedi gweld yn y papurau neu rwle bod tai yn Rhyl yn poeni bod nhw wedi symud rhyw wal o flaen i'w tai nhw sy'n dal y môr yn ôl oherwydd arbed y golf.
Diolch, Meirik. I think Paul's going to come in on that.
Diolch, Meirik. Yeah, just in relation to the issue of the changes to this particular scheme. Clearly they're still proposing a substation in the location that we talked about back in October. But obviously we've got opportunities to comment when they submit their sort of formal application. Again, what I want to stress here really, a couple of things. They're still at pre-application stage here. And at pre-application stage, it's not Denbighshire County Council that are responsible for who they're consulting or how they're consulting. It's the applicants. So obviously, any community council, any individual member, any resident, they've got as much right as us as a local planning authority to feed back any information to the project. It's getting a bit confusing, and I take Councillor Mervyn Parry's point there really in relation to the number of renewable energy schemes that there are around here. Clearly, you know, it's climate change and it's the bigger picture, and so we've got to try and accept that there's going to be these types of proposals and schemes. But the final point there in terms of what Councillor Mary Lloyd-Davis said, he has probably read something about concerns from residents in an area of Prestine. That's actually in relation to a coastal defence scheme as opposed to this wind farm scheme. So again, I think some information can get a little bit blurred with the amount of these types of schemes that there are. But clearly what we're looking for today, members, is just authorisation for any individual member who feels that their ward might be affected by the Awella Moor project to contact Denise Shaw. Denise has got all the relevant information. Any issues that you want to raise with her that can then go into our final response to Awella Moor, we'll liaise with all the relevant members, with the lead member and with the chair before that gets sent off. But it was just a timing thing. We've got until the 2nd of March. And so we wanted to just come to you today to get that delegated authority. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So if we're happy with that, I'm just going to clarify with the legal officer, do we need a formal vote on this one? So we'll need a proposer and a seconder.
I'm happy to propose.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Butterfield. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Gwyneth Kensler, diolch yn fawr. So we can do this without reading through everyone's. So proposing that what I read out before. So if I just read it very, very briefly again. So the officers can have delegated powers to submit comments on their updated plans on behalf of the council. And obviously any members can raise any matters with Denise Shaw and ensure the chair of planning and the lead member are copied in, and then seek agreement on a final response with the chair and lead member before sending the response, and then just adding in Councillor Mark Young's thing of ensuring that members can see the report a minimum of 24 hours before it gets sent off. So what we'll do, so that's been proposed and seconded. So I'll just leave you a few seconds in a moment. If there's any dissenting voices, then speak now. Otherwise, we will assume that that is okay. Okay, so that has been approved, and that is the end of the meeting. So there we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For March, it's probably the same day. It's probably March the 9th in 4 weeks, is it? Or 5 weeks? 4 or 5 weeks. See you then. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.